Okay. All right, what's up, friends and fellow anti-netters? We have the legend himself in his own mind, and in the anti-netters mind, we have Lane Watson here. Yeah, Lane hit me up. Let's give the viewers a little backstory. Lane, you hit me up. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before via text, and you kind of talked about or highlighted one of the things a lot of people fear, and one of the things that holds people back from actually getting started with their own anti-net, with their own analog Zettelkasten, which is the, oh shit, what if I set this up wrong? Or what if I, do this wrong? Then I'm like basically confined to, I don't know, like a system that, is all screwed up because I didn't know what I was doing in the beginning. And, with that, I always say, evolve your mistakes, don't start over. And that's what I did. Like I have so many mistakes in there, and like numbering mistakes and just weird conventions, but it like created its own personality. But I think why don't you take the floor and talk to me about what you are encountering and the obstacle and challenge, and kind of like the voice in the back of your head going, oh crap, I don't know if this is set up right and stuff. So yeah, jump into it.
I mean, I think I set it up right. There's 4 things going on that created kind of like a crisis, so to speak, when I reached out to you. 4 really. One, I definitely realize now that when I set this up, I was in exploratory mode, or at least I thought I was. But the reality is as I've developed it over the last couple of months, I've really kind of come to a point of like, okay, I'm writing a book and it's going to be on creativity. And so that's one thing. And so I had to work through that, like, what's going on here? So that kind of triggered the like, well, should I be doing a kind of Luminesque, his first verse Zettelkasten, or maybe is trying to be in reality his second one or his last one, where it was fully just about sociology. It was, so I got that resolved. The thing that's really been bugging me, and I can't put my finger on it, is it's when I'm working, through my notes and I'm about to install the notes, I'm having a problem figuring out where to put them. And then I feel like I'm doing too much remote linking, and I don't like that because it's chaos. And then I was like, well, maybe it's my index is off. And so then I did a serious hub note index on my main, the main cards that I'm working in. So basically I'm working in creativity. Of course, I'm touching on consciousness. I'm touching on philosophy. I'm touching on, educational, obviously psychology, cognitive science, neuroscience, all those things are coming into play. But I'm starting to realize, like, well, just, everything I'm writing is coming back to my framework. And so when I take notes, I very rarely do, I guess it would be a reformulation note. I do reflection.
Yeah.
It's very rare that I'll even need to write down a quote. I usually, what I'm reading triggers me into a, 3-4 card, minimum writing session on those ideals that triggered it. Now I reference the author and stuff, but I very rarely do a reformulation or a excerpt. I do definitely reflection. And so what happens is not only is a reflection note, maybe is about, something like, like this framework that I'm writing on. I'm talking about, these different things about the different, which I have to define still, like, instructors and constructors and reconstructors. They're kind of like roles within a creativity innovation thing, but it also touches on business. So, I'll be talking about innovation, business, those roles. So for me to go neatly and plug a card, branch it right up after another one doesn't make sense, right? Because there's too many things within that. There's no one core idea that, oh, this is about me just talking about instructors. So let me put it behind 2612/01, where I
which is instructors.
before,
Mhm.
previously. Instead, it's like, well, I could put one of these cards behind starter, but it's a complete back-to-back thought, right? So it's a packet. I very rarely write one card note,
Mhm. Yeah, but that stream of thought, I call them like thought streams,
Mhm.
where you're writing like 2 or 3, main cards
Yeah.
essentially, right? Um, I'm guessing that has like one kind of key, main idea, and I guess at least in my experience, the benefit is that it really makes you choose and find like the most similar, you know, branch or stem to place that under or
Mhm.
after, in a sequence. Um, so tell me, has that been your experience where like the 3 cards are kind of like one big main theme, or are you saying like each of the 3, or there's like multiple ideas or something? It might be good to like walk through an example on this. Um, I'll say this too, is you highlighted something, and I think you went over it pretty quickly, and a lot of people are experiencing this without knowing this, but there's kind of like 2 phases. There's the exploratory phase or the growth phase, and then there's the contribution phase, which, in the beginning, you are not even sure what you're working on or building, right?
Mhm.
And you touched on what Lumen did, and his first Zettelkasten was primarily just a collection of thoughts and excerpts and reformulations to kind of like prime the mind and give them ideas. And his second one was very thesis driven. It was like focused on output, so it was contribution driven. So you're in, there's like phase 1 and phase 2. The thing is, you're constantly back circling, and you will constantly be circling throughout like the rest of your life. But the interesting thing is, and this is what I read recently, is this isn't unique to Lumen. Every single person goes through. It's not like people can just start automatically, like in the contribution phase. A lot of the times it's like you have to, like, especially in your early 20s and stuff, like they looked at Robert Boyle and all of these like great like Renaissance learned men and all their notes. And in the beginning of every single one, in like their early 20s or early in their career, or even in the early writing project, in the very beginning, it looked exactly like Lumen's, where there were a lot of excerpts and a lot of just like exploratory. And then they made a switch. And what's interesting is during that switch, their switch into the contribution phase focused on not getting bogged down writing excerpts and writing quotes and writing all that. All of their notes got way more concise and shorthand. And then, like Lumen's, the bib card notes, the bib notes, and then, you can just focus and, cherry pick the best observation notes to then create like main cards out of it, like focused and output driven. So you've kind of, it sounds like you've made that transition or switch, which for a long time, I think you were struggling with the opposite approach of like, you couldn't really decide. You're in exploratory mode. And it's I think good news and big progress that you've made the transition into contribution and output mode, at least with creativity. At least you have one thing to focus on. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be 50 next year. I've done a lot of exploring, and I think what I was doing when I first started this anti-net and met you and everything is I was resisting kind of what I already knew I needed to be doing, and what I've always known I've needed to do for the last maybe 15, 20 years is like, I've had an issue with the creativity field and how it's approached. And but that was all more confidence related, like, oh, I don't have anything to say. And now that I've been reading more in it, although I might be over on Peterson or James or something like that, those books are like, oh, they're interesting, but if they don't lead anything like a spark to the framework or to something that my thesis on creativity, then I'm not wasting my time. I'll make note of it.
Yep.
It's interesting. So yeah, I've definitely done a pretty hard transition, maybe just really in the last couple of weeks to, okay, I'm going to write a book for sure. And I'm just going to go into deep dive. I mean, I'm doing survey of literature right now, but it's all creativity based. And then I'll go into, that deeper. I've never really been a excerpter. I mean, that was the one thing my professors loved about me. I'm really good at synthesizing information. And so I very rarely very rarely reformulate excerpt. Even when I wrote college essays and theses and stuff, I'm pretty good at sparking an idea and going down that train. And that's what's happening. And
so when you write, when your reflection notes, you're writing as if it's going to be a paragraph or a few paragraphs in your book. Yep. Good. Okay, cool. And then the second thing is, so you have this, one of the things I think you touched upon is you have this kind of working thesis and this working idea for a creativity framework, right? And real quick, before we go into that, I checked out your website right before, we hopped on here. I think your most recent post, it was like on June 15th or something. That was, that it's funny. It's like, that was I think your best post. Like, you've gotten better and better at spitting out content. Like, it wasn't as much teaching, and deep concepts, but it was like very, it was kind of written like my emails, just like off the top of the head type thing, which is, I think, because as with the anti-net and kind of the paradigms or the model that I have of what it really does is, of course it makes you a learning machine, but there's three specific things it really makes you is, and then a lot of people, you have to kind of, I don't know, it's really good to focus on one, and one is content machine, which is like online content. The second one is writing machine, like writing a book. And then third is research machine, like become a paper machine like Lumen, right? Yeah. And the interesting thing is all three of those take a sort of a different knowledge development process of how you actually go about creating the main notes, and actually how you go from main note to writing. So like the online, if you want to be an online content machine, you don't want to just go from your notes and write it into the blog post or something. Instead, you just want to I know it because I've written it down and created it. I'm going to put it away in the drawer and then just write flow of thought, and that is a way better way to become a content machine, because the content you create is a lot better. You don't get bogged down. People don't want necessarily hard to be taught, in online blog posts. Yeah. They want infotainment.
Yeah. Which is why I'm not writing on the blog anymore. That's secondary to me now. Now that I've made that decision. Before it was, I'm gonna be a content machine on the internet. But then I realized everything that I'm working through, it's just so dense. It would be like almost like writing academic articles, and I don't want to do that on my blog. I have to define what an instructor is so that people understand the terminology before I even get into what the framework is. And so that's when I realized, this is a book, and I just need to go with it, and I'm cool with that. And thank you for reading the blog and checking it out. I will not be posting anymore. So please don't go I mean, it's still up, but
I have some thoughts on that though too.
Okay. I don't know which post you're talking about. I would like to know that, just so I kind of know. I mean, you don't have to tell me now, but so I kind of know like which one is he talking about. And
it's the Wednesdays, what I'm aiming at and what I'm doing.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
That was really just me I mean, this is what I'm doing.
But you know what? Okay, so this is a whole, I can't give all of this away or go deep into it right now, but give it to me in the later. yeah, exactly. The overall thing though is that it's counterintuitive, but you want to keep doing that, but not have it drain your life energy and mind energy. And the reason is, and there's a certain style, there's also a certain way to message it. And there's a whole, this is kind of like what I was talking about, like the neo-intellectual life, how to actually, you know, build a neo-intellectual life and do knowledge development and reading and writing and this type of stuff
I
for a
like
living.
that term. You
Yeah.
were talking to me like you've told it to me before. No, I like
Yeah.
that. Neo-intellectual. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And but yeah, we you know, that's kind of like a separate thing that we can get into. But the overall thing is, I don't think you necessarily want to throw away the blog yet. You just want to change and tweak your writing style and what it means to you, because
Yeah.
what it can become is basically, what you want is, you want to have an audience, so that by the time you are done with the book, that, you know, just exactly what I've created, you know, by the time you're done
Have
with the
somebody
book,
there.
yeah, and have someone
Yeah.
there. And that's the ultimate goal, I know, for you, is community connection, and to be able to attract using, you know, you want the neo-intellectual life, and you know, you and I both are instantiating it right now by, you know, like, I've attracted you to my, like, you know, community, my calling of this whole world, and you're going to be attracting others to your whole calling of, you know, creativity and that idea.
Yeah.
But so that
I
gets
mean,
into
it's interesting that you brought it up, and you know, we can move on, but
yeah.
I'm thank you for sharing that with me, because when I wrote that part, it was me being completely transparent. Hey guys, I need help with
Exactly.
this framework. I want, you know, I'm willing to work with you on your ideas if you're willing to work with me on my idea. Almost kind of like a little Zoom call once a week. One person took me up. Not that I only have like 15 subscribers, so that's a good ratio. But
Yeah,
but I felt like, oh, that was a dead
I've read
blog
your other
post.
ones, you know,
Okay.
and that was your best one.
The
Is
other ones are intellectually draining to me because
Yep.
I want him to go into the book. And so for you to confirm that makes me feel better. And now maybe that will be a once weekly thing where this is what I'm working on. This is what I'm reading. If you need help on your idea and it's in this range creativity, then let's talk. And if you want to talk to me about this, you know, I would like that to continue that.
What the metric, and this is a secret thing that I will reveal for the people that watch this, is the metric that you should be aiming for on every blog post, and do it like once a week. Don't look at notes, don't teach, it's infotainment, but is to write the 100% authentic truth, you know?
Yeah.
And that is the only metric I write for. So here's the Easter egg, and I'll reveal it here, you know, on a, this is an
It's not much of
exclusive.
an Easter egg
This
if you
is,
tell them it's an Easter
yeah,
egg.
yeah. This isn't, well, it's not going to be revealed anywhere else. So this is
Okay.
an exclusive Scott and Lane Easter egg giveaway that only the people that make it this far into the video will know.
Yeah, so all you assholes that quit watching because they don't like me talking,
Yeah.
you don't get it.
All right, so here is the Easter egg. At the bottom of my emails that I write, I have this little metrics and score. I hide it in the emails, and it's like T-auth truth, you know, like, so or auth truth score or stuff. And I've made it even more apparent. And I have like a little number next to it. And people don't even, they gloss over it. It's like right by the unsubscribe button. But it is my score out of 0 to 100 of how authentically true that email was. Like how you know, vulnerable it was, how, like, what I was really thinking. And so when I write an email, I write in order to optimize. My one and only goal is to optimize for that. Write the authentic truth, the auth score, authentic truth
That's
score.
interesting, because I've
And
read your emails, and some of them are like, wow, he's getting really vulnerable here. I like it because I feel the same way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
and
interesting. I'm gonna go back and look at your scores now.
Yeah, it's entertaining too. You know, it's like and you know, that comes from the late great copywriter, you know, inspired by him, Gary Halbert, and also Hemingway as well. So yeah, so there's a little Easter egg tidbit for everyone. But yeah, why don't we jump into the I guess to kind of plan this out is, let's dive more specifically into you know, creativity, what you're working on, and yeah, what you're kind of, the issue, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like the issue you're running into is you have like the core concepts that run across like 5 different branches, and you know, like big branches instead of and all over the place, instead of it kind of evolving into like one big cohesive line of work.
It's the leafing system, leaves that you talk about. It's that kind of like back to back leaving, right? And then within that, you'll have some branches and stems and stuff. But what happened, I felt like in the beginning, because I was in this forced discovery and I didn't realize it till lately, it was like, well, you know what? I'm looking in religion, I'm looking in philosophy of mind. Now I'm back over here in sociology, and then entrepreneurship, neuroscience. They're all talking about creativity, maybe not directly to the framework or direct to creativity, but they're all under the lens of creativity. So if I'm writing about business, I'm talking about like corporatism versus individuality and creativity, right? I'm not talking about like, even though I just read a business acumen book, and it, I got the things that are like important, like I note down. Oh, that's interesting. That's not relevant to me now. I'll come back to it, underline or whatever, or it goes into my brain and I'm like, okay, that's kind of what I've always thought about, but it always synthesizes over to creativity. So I was like, why do I have like all these branches or all these topic levels that are fragmenting me, basically? If that makes sense. Like I feel fragmented, like, oh, I'm over here. Oh, I know I wrote about it. Okay, that's, let me go back over to 15501 because that's I have a footnote to point me remote link back over. I feel like remote links are out of control. It's what I feel like.
Well, yeah. So how long have you been? Tell me about like the overall. Let me reflect back to you on what your book sounds like so far, and like, and the working idea, and maybe because I think it might be too early. Okay,
it is too early, but yeah.
Okay, so it starts with this, and this is kind of how my book and the whole process started. I surveyed it started with, here's the problem with how Zettelkasten is taught today. It's taught completely wrong. And then, that was like the major premise, right? And that didn't come until, during reading my primary sources and actually going into the research and finding out how it really works. So what I did and what I had to do is, I went into the very primary sources, and this didn't happen linearly. I'm simplifying this, of course. This is one big freaking looping roller coaster, where it's like, it's just all over the place, right?
Same here.
Yeah. And what really happened, or where it kind of like took shape and really started to take off, is, these individual ideas or concepts and topics like emerged, right? But they emerged through going to the primary sources. So first I went to Nicholas Luhmann's actual, paper, and I spent like way too long on, this brief paper, but he writes so densely. You have to unpack every single sentence, right? Would take like, I don't know, a very long time. So I started with Luhmann's paper. That took me like 2 to 3 weeks at least to go through. Then I went through Johannes Schmidt's very in-depth article, and I started spotting, all of these themes that were completely untouched and not even mentioned in books like Zonke Ahrens's How to Take Smart Notes. Certain ideas and things would emerge that I was like, wait, there's something here, because it keeps popping up, like the idea of order and chaos, and ordered chaos, and ordered disorder, and that creates randomness and surprise and unconventional insights, and the whole thing was very different from what I had learned and been taught, which was like the Zonke Ahrens kind of school of Zettelkasten, as well as reading, the linking your thinking school, and just like, that was like, oh yeah, dynamic, the basically the bubble graph boys, oh, you want to link all your thoughts and create these like bubble graphs in Obsidian, and then, like all the stuff. And it was not at all how, Luhmann actually thought of it and how it worked, right? So one of the things that you've, I guess, mentioned to me, and I think this is a major premise of kind of what you're creating, is you take issue with how the conventional school, just like Sankey Arons and the conventional school of PKM and Zettelkasten, you take issue with how they are teaching it, right? How they are teaching creativity. And so, and then I guess you would want to go to, research. And this is where I'm a little unclear, is like, where are your, primary sources? And, how did you excavate, the framework that you created, that you've come up with for creativity,
Yeah. Well, the framework is has been there for a very long time, and it originates from being an artist.
Mm-hmm.
And then I originally went to school for literature and theology, and I was actually going to become a Catholic priest and a Jesuit priest, and then tragedy, father, and all that. And when I finally went back to complete my degree, I said, why am I doing this? This doesn't answer questions for me. I am a poet, I am a writer, a creative writer. And so I went back to school and got accepted into a pretty prestigious writing program. It was a BFA because I was still in my bachelor's level. I only had a semester left. I should have just graduated and did an MFA. But so I got the BFA in poetry, but while I was doing that, I was lucky. I was able to really study creativity. And I've always, even as a young kid, when I was, writing, creative writing, I still was more fascinated with the process of writers. Like, I would read biographies on Hemingway. I would read biographies on Dostoevsky, because I've always been interested in the biography, the life, the process of people. And so I'm definitely a creative person, creative process of the 4 P's of creativity. But and then when I went to master school, that's when I got really pissed, because I was like, these people, like, they're psychologists, they're everything is either, like, if it's anything to do with chaos, it's automatically mental illness. They just want to go there, right? And it makes sense. That's their, hammer, right? And the nails. So
Yep.
and then on the other side, basically in the 50s, psychology, education, critical theory got all about creativity, right? Because it's no longer about the lone genius, creative. It's got to be for everybody, right, on some level. And it's a way to solve problems. So it moved from problem probing, which is what I believe artists do. We're fine with being in change and chaos, and trying to navigate that and come up with some quote unquote product. Whereas creativity studies, from the psychology standpoint and everything, is more about creative problem solving. And if you look at the pentacle of when creativity as a noun did not come about until the 1950s. People think creativity has just been, no, it has not. I mean, it's always been creation or creative as divine or something like that. It wasn't until the 50s when a psychologist called J.P. Guilford called a symposium to say, hey, we need to study this. And if you read his initial symposium opening, it sounds like he's a conservative propagandist for Cold War. It's like, we are on the verge of military, annihilation. And, so creativity got this from, this, like, we got to solve this problem of being done, to militarily, politically, government, economically, so it became more almost innovation business and all that. And that's what you see the study of from that point. And then the artists just got left behind, except the cultural theorists who come in and go, oh, we don't want to listen to white dead men. It's not enough, so the feminist stuff, and it was really chaotic. Now it's settled down, and they've all determined we still don't know what creativity, imagination, and stuff is. So my framework is my attempt to try to put it in the lens of, or in the realm of like, artistry, as creativity, and that could be applied in business, but not as a commodity, but as a, like, you want innovation, then you have to move away from inventive thinking and innovation thinking and science-based thinking and move into artistic thinking to solve business problems. And so the model, the framework I have is kind of, the instructors and the what I call constructor reconstructors, and then you have deconstructors who are the, out there in the chaos, And as a side note, just this weekend, and I never picked up on it, reading James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake, he came up with a term called chaosmos, where he talks about, as an artist, artists are all in chaos, and it's like sometimes you move into the cosmos order of things, but it's okay if you don't, because order leads to disorder, leads to order, it's complexity and all that chaos theory.
Yeah, it's and yeah, that's why the interesting thing is, and what Luhmann says in his article on the Zettelkasten, on the Lumanian Zettelkasten, the anti-net, the badass one is, it sounds counterintuitive, but chaos relies on order, like when you look at chaos and like the fractals and all that stuff, it relies on this like very fundamental like set of order and building blocks in order to create complex chaotic structures. And then also variation and chance. That's why you don't want a perfectly ordered system. You want like
exactly,
anyway,
which is why I'm okay with the anti-net. It's because I can operate in chaos. I'm fine. That's one of my gifts. I'm really good at change management and things like that. And but something's off, when intuitively, like something's, I got to get this right now, or it's going to grow into a monster, and then it will cause not good chaos. But like where the hell's that?
Okay, so a few things. First off, real quick, is the story, your origin story you just told me, that is at least 1 or 2 chapters in the beginning of your book.
Oh wow.
So that should be, and you should make a section and write those out. Like I have in my anti-net over there, I have my origin story. You'll see, like, you can even see it on my website in like the first or second or third email, like down on my website. It is my origin story, right? That started as in cards. It's like like I don't know, a centimeter thick of main cards. You want to write it out, and you want that to be like okay, and don't you don't necessarily call it chapter 1, but you call it like origin story or something, and place that in the main creativity branch or section. So yeah, that's okay. You have your first, there's probably 2 chapters of material in there. One of the key points, like in your introduction, like is like the kind of good overall how to, you would want to create, you would want to write about how the whole line of thought of creativity wasn't a noun until the 1950s, and like go into that, right? And then the first chapter would be, you would start at the point of high conflict and drama, like any good story, and you'd be like, and there I was after a freaking like a 5-year 10-year creative lull, and here am I, like supposed to be this person of creativity, or or go back to that story of like, I decided to go back, here I am, and like in college studying poetry, and I'm like 40 something years old or whatever years old, and I'm thinking to myself, what the
I
hell?
wasn't that old.
I don't know. Yeah. But you want to start in the point of high drama too, and take people back, right? So you've got 2 sections, 2 chapters there. You need to flush it out and write it out and develop those 2 lines of thought, so that during your upcoming readings, as you're still reading, because you're still in reading and research phase, you're going to spot things that then support individual cards in those lines of stories that you're going to then add after or under, right? Branch back or branch down, creating those, 5215/1A or down 52125/1/1, and continue that line of thought, whatever, right? All right. So this kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of how it works. the second thing is that, creativity, right, is your kind of branch, the main branch now that you want to kind of start building this stuff out and writing into. Um, you know, my big branch that became the anti-net book was originally titled Zettelkasten. It still is, because the anti-net was still emerging and surfacing. I didn't know I was going to call it the anti-net yet.
Yeah.
Right. And the anti-net is just a way to, very clearly tell someone that it has at least, to me, it sounds cool, obviously, and I make a case for it. You don't want to just call it an analog note box because that's just redundant and stupid. It's like, yeah, it's an analog note box, but it's specifically structured in the Lumanian way, like the numeric alpha, index, tree, all of that stuff. Anyway, you're going to want to pick a branch to kind of develop this thing out. And have that be kind of the primary branch, and think of that branch as your project. Call it the creativity project. I don't know,
I did that. I called it the creativity framework.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
No, I created another topic and I pulled it back into the creativity branch.
Okay.
I widened it out and put it back in because I was like, no, I'm fragmenting out too much. Because I was like, yeah, let me hold this. Really what two things are going on is I'm developing the framework, but I don't know if that'll be in this book. This book is more, I think, going to be touching on creativity, artistry versus basically a mechanistic view that has taken over in creativity, in my opinion. So that's really what I think the book's going to be, because I think, like you just said, and you nailed it for me, it sparked it said yes when you said it was it was called the Zettelkasten lane, and it was only as I developed through and was starting to do it that the anti-net came about, right?
Exactly.
And I feel like the framework, yes, the model's there roughly, but it's not going to be developed till I get some baseline foundational arguments down that I want to get down for,
or the creativity framework.
Individual versus
Okay, so there let me reflect back to you. There's kind of two things. Is the first kind of book or thing, hunch or topic that you have uncovered or unearthed is the mechanistic and robotic, overly commercialized, trying to quench out of creativity that you see today, instead of viewing it as art or something along those lines, right?
Yeah, an aesthetic versus capitalistic commodity type thing. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's, you're saying is yes. Okay. So you're tired of seeing creativity shouldn't just be a line item on on a profit loss statement, and the CEO's questions, okay, how much did we invest in this line item? Okay, what is the direct revenue and output? What is the return on creativity, right? And so
everybody, let's hire a bunch of creatives when the economy's up, but when there's a recession,
they're the first ones to cut.
Exactly. That type of thing.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the one, and then that book is essentially about this, explaining the problem and then using examples and maybe pulling from the books and all of the propaganda material out there and reading them as the primary sources, and then writing out main cards showing why and how they are wrong and what the results lead to.
And that's basically what I'm doing.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Right now. I mean, I'm in survey of literature mode. And I have this one book that's turning me on to, a thing, I mean, I don't agree with his thesis roughly because he's a constructivist, but he is at least an honest constructivist where he's pulling, it's well, this is what Marx thought, and this is what Eagleton thought, and this is what James Joyce thought. And so, I'm oh, this is my bibliography right here to start working through, where when I was in grad school, it was propaganda. So I only got to read, before I dropped out because, I just was sick of it, basically the Guilfords and things like that. And I didn't agree with it. And I wasn't allowed latitude to explore what I thought by my professors. That's the reason why I dropped out ultimately. And so so this is opening up, and I've not even gone to primary sources yet. This is kind of like,
well, you mentioned kind of what was it? The Gilroy or
Guilford.
Guilford? Yeah.
Yeah.
Gilroy, Guilford, same thing.
Same asshole.
That's another section in the book, and it might be part of the origin story, but is you want to, this may be a second chapter, is you want to survey the land and the roots of the problem of mechanistic creativity, right? And then go through Guilford and showcase, tell your story first, because that's the important part, and then showcase why and where by reading bib card, Guilford's books, showcase, create, and reflect, and that's another section of the book. And so I think where we should get to now is you outlined 4 things or something, but the main thing is that maybe we can pull up your anti-net. You can show me, so maybe people would find this valuable. You could show me kind of like where you are running into an obstacle or a wall where you think it's too fragmented. So I'll maximize this screen. So yeah, try to get it close to the camera.
All right. So, all right, let me go to, I just stuck it back here. So, and this is a perfect example, I think. Okay. So, so that's 1, 3. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. All right. So today, for instance, and so I'm talking about this, we're talking about, now these are, well, let me get something that's a little more through line. I got 2 examples, one that I still struggle with, and the other one that I really had difficulty. Okay. So this is kind of like a overview card. Can you see it?
Yeah. Okay. Hold it there for a second. Okay. So let me read it. It says like, what is, there it goes. Okay. What is this framework? Questions. Am I developing something else? Yeah. 2612/0. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So that's kind of the overview. Touch that because I think it's so dark in my office that it's, see if that works better. I guess not. There. All right. Yeah. So that was kind of in, this card was the beginning of a under 1405 originally, 1402 originally applied philosophy, because I was like, this is an applied philosophy of creativity. And then I was like, that fragmentation thing, nope, I moved it back over to 2612, which is my main creativity. It's under cognitive science, which is what most creativity is under.
Okay.
So I started writing that. So I had that. And then, so then what I started talking about is, let me find the B1 there. I go into I'm not going to be able to read it, but this is kind of what I'm starting to go into. So this is 2612/0 B1.
Cool.
Because it's the first one. Is that upside down?
No.
Oh, it's just reading upside down. Okay. Yeah. So I'm basically saying, is creativity uniquely chaotic, complex, or emergent? I believe it is, because creativity resides in the unconscious. I make a footnote going out to my unconscious section where I talk about creativity and how the unconscious works on art and stuff. And then it goes into, in chaos, emergent theory seeks to understand complexity in terms of what seems like regular patterns, but in reality are unpredictable. To me, this seems wholly in the realm of creative process. The real question is if useful products or transformations can emerge from chaotic states, and further, if attempting to control creativity as commodity for an end product work in business innovation. And then I go on and talk about, for instance, attempting to control creativity and setting models for innovation and creativity, causing incremental innovation instead of radical. I keep going on, and then I go, well, maybe we should, maybe if businesses want real innovation like they talk about, they should go back to a skunk works model, which is what Boeing and all them did back in the 50s. They literally let the scientists go crazy out there to come up with innovation, right? And I said maybe they should sign, you know, fellowship contracts with artists who are the experts in creativity. You know, you want an expert in finance, or you want an expert in this, why not hire experts in creativity, i.e. artists? They're very good at navigating. And then that's when I go into the framework of like, you're going to need your constructors and your instructors. These are the people, you know, constructors can handle the crazy artist deconstructors who are talking, you know, crazy. I'm a constructor, right? I don't consider myself a deconstructor artist like I would hire for a business. I consider myself a constructor. I'm good at listening to them and bringing that information and then disseminating it back over to what I call the instructors, who are more like disseminate the information, and it's more what you would find in a corporate structure, right? And so I go across those 4 cards from that to the end of like, you know, yeah, we need, you know, just-in-time learning, being able to understand industries, businesses, et cetera. These are the people who create radical innovations, such as consultants, contractors. They have to be deconstructors. It has to be a mix of deconstructors, reconstructors, and instructors. So I start with complexity and chaos. So it is, you know, it's got a through theme, right?
Yeah.
But then I was like, I have no idea where to put this.
Well,
so I put 2612 0 and put it at the front of the
yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine though. You have in that sequence, that one big line of thought, you have a few distinct themes though too. You also have the idea of a skunk works, you know, which is a unique section, and that should be you know, you should have a key term in the index, or and really, like, you know, when, and I think you've seen it, I call them, and Lumen had them too, but they're called like you know, a sectional collective. Like at the front of the 26, you know, 1-2 branch, you know, you can put like, it's essentially, you know, one big index for that branch, you know, so you could put skunkworks and a link to that. Yep. Oh, you have it?
Yeah, 4 of them, 4 cards of them.
Perfect. Yeah. So that you've seen it like mine, where they kind of, they emerge, right? So that's like, you should have like a skunkworks entry in there, so that whenever you come across that, you can expand that, you know. But yeah,
So
I don't see
it's not a problem.
Yeah, like that whole line of thought, that 2612/0, you know,
Like this is 2612 15A, and this is what is a, what did I put? What is a creative instructor? And right behind it's what is a creative constructor. So when I was writing these, I was like, well, they're one thought, but this card that where I am talking about instructor, constructor, deconstructor, well, then I have to make a choiceless card. Does it go behind instructor? Does it go behind deconstructor? Does it go behind, you know, so well, that's probably going too crazy with it, right?
Well, so how I see your book shaping up, or
please tell me, because I have no idea what it shapes up. I've been sitting here trying to think of an outline, and I would never.
You're gonna have a chapter, you know, that has a nice overview of your entire framework, you know, that goes into like maybe a paragraph or 3 of each of the components. But then you're gonna want to have an in-depth chapter on each one, you know, and go really in deep, like, you know, chapter 8, constructors, chapter 9, you know, destructors, you know, and going deep for each one. So, and then how those actually get built out. So you have that like 15A and then maybe 15B or something, right?
Yeah, and those were the, and again, that, you know, like anti-net does, your mind is developing. So those are like 3 months ago, first ideas. I didn't have those terms, right?
Exactly.
And so now they developed into these terms. So I feel like they need to be near those terms, but it's kind of a jump to go, you know, to, I guess it's not.
What you can do is you can also, like, so I'm a little unfamiliar with, how it looks over there, but you can create a see also card. I call those hop link cards, where like right behind, 15A, you just create like a blank white card that says, for more on whatever, for more on, like, and I have a bunch of those. Lumina had a bunch of those, and it's like, it kind of makes you feel
linking them at the bottom.
Yeah. And it kind of makes you feel like you're wasting space if you go. But what I do is like, I'll be like, for more on instructors, right? For more on, so you'll have 15A, right? You create 15A/1, and you say, for more on instructors, see this section, and then the link to that section. That way, when you're going, so, when you get time to write the book, right? When you're going through, okay, I want to write the part on instructors, right? You get it, and then you read the first card, you type the first card in, and then you get to the second one, and the second one says, oh, for more on this, see also this, and it points you to that whole new section. And then from there, you can write and rewrite, out that section. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people think that, oh, well, what if I write about that section already in the book somewhere else? When you rewrite, when you're writing it by hand, it serves as a cue, and you've stamped in all of this idea. You're developing your freaking mind and brain. These are just cues, right? So when you write into manuscript, you're going to write in a very unique and different way, like combining a lot of this knowledge, from a bunch of different sources, from a bunch of different branches as well. So yeah, I mean,
I guess I was feeling fragmented because when I know I'm going to get ready to read that book, and that is a great idea for C also, as long as I make sure I don't want to be going, 2615A, okay, instructor and everything, okay, and then see this card, all the remote links, and then I'm like pulling all these remote links, because that's a fragmented break of the mind, or the linear, not the linear, but the fluidity of the thought. And if I'm wanting to have good amounts of leaving.
You want like about, like, I don't know, like 2 centimeters, let's say, right? Like of
continuous thought
per each section.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that'll kind of stem and come from your readings, over time.
Yeah.
But I don't see a problem with putting those, like, give me the why can't you do that now? Like, what's the what is holding you back from creating a nice chunk of leaves, for those stems? We're kind of talking to metaphors right now. What we're talking about to the audience is, your anti-net is a tree of knowledge, and then you don't want to have 30 branches with 1 leaf on them. You want one like stem with 30 lines of continuous leaves, that maybe kind of stem off a little bit in different directions. But you want to create like when writing a book, the evolution long term is, you want like each section to have like, let's say a centimeter. A centimeter really, honestly, is really all you need for each main section, each chapter, and
see, also that's going to solve the problem. And then just, I think, like you said, cards. now that I'm seeing, okay, I think now that I'm like, okay, I'm not sure which book I'm writing. I don't have it fully formulated.
You kind of have 2 creative books you're writing. One is more of a, here's what's wrong with the creative landscape today, and the second one is,
here's my solution for what's wrong.
Here's my solution for what is right.
I'm gonna write a Scott book, and it needs to be 2 or 3 volumes.
Seriously, that's what this kind of turns you into.
And
before you know it, you might be, honestly, you probably, and that's the thing, is like imagine if each section or each book was like its own research paper, but then like when you combine it all, it turns into like, a 600-page book. And that's why it does turn you into a writing machine, like a book writing machine, but it's through the breaking it into smaller chunks. Yeah, the it's interesting. The
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And I will say the last couple of days, because I am more focused in that, I am seeing my leaves, the
yeah,
succession growing instead of, because I am not reading Peterson. I'm not reading
yeah,
James. I'm strictly reading books on, well,
yep,
creativity for now. Eventually I'll get into, Marx to see, because I have to, because he's Mr. Leftist happy guy, right? And that's where they get all their production ideals from. We're a production machine, so I have to get in that, but it will be on the creativity lens, right? And so I think that's my resolution. Is going to make me feel good is also see this and just try to keep them in those chunks. I don't mind stemming off and everything. It's just when it gets into other, like, another topic, like my creativity on consciousness, it should be in my creativity. But at the time I thought I was doing consciousness. So although I'm
yeah,
talking
and
about yeah.
which is fine though too, because when you're going to write about that section, let's say creativity and consciousness, put
Mhm.
that into 2612, make it like 2612/18 or something,
Mhm.
and then on that front of the card and say, for more on consciousness, see also this section, right? But
Okay.
then continue to branch down and go and write, like, so your goal should be to like fill up half of that box that you showed me,
Mhm.
with cards, right? um and you want each section or each chapter, each core component of your book, which is kind of starting to come together to be like a
Yeah.
centimeter, each. The other thing is, and it sounds like you're doing, and yeah, that's what I, in the beginning, it was like, yeah, I'm like, I was literally like a year ago when I was first starting to write the Anti-Net book, I was reading books on the historical Jesus and the early copyists of the Bible and scribes, and and it's like, yeah, I was reading so in many different directions, but I chased my
Yeah.
fascination. But that was just one of my fascinations at the time. This whole Zettelkasten and the analog Zettelkasten was another fascination. So
Mhm.
early on in the process, it's okay to read for breadth, like a wide breadth
Yeah.
of a bunch of different things, because guess what is like actually that
That's the unique.
those types of like some of the gems like made it into my Anti-Net book, believe it or
Mhm.
not, because some of them really do have like interesting implications, or at least like I read about how the historical Jesus and really Christianity as we know it today, is really Paul's version of Christianity. Paul was a Pharisee that was Greek speaking. He never knew Jesus. And then, he essentially created the term Christ because that's a Greek term. And he wrote
Mhm.
all of the Bible, the new, really what has become primary basis of the New Testament.
Yeah.
And so that whole concept, believe it or not, like I'm reading that, this is like a year ago, it actually reflected and mirrored to me what has happened with the Zettelkasten space. You have
Yeah.
everyone explaining Nicholas Luhmann's Zettelkasten by calling it fleeting notes and permanent notes and literature notes. And those are all terms, that's Sankey Arendt's,
Mhm.
he doesn't have malicious intent, but he is like
Paul.
the Pauline Christianity. He is
Yeah.
Paul, and
Yeah.
if you go back to the true words of Luhmann and what he wrote in the true system, if you go back to the true words of Jesus, right, he was a Galilean, Jew from Nazareth that spoke Aramaic, was illiterate, and was all about not creating idols, but servant leadership and through example, right?
Mhm.
And his way of life, there's a lot of these other things that were then stamped onto it, right? A lot of other interpretations that came from people that
Yeah.
didn't even know Jesus, right? So I related
Ideologies. Yeah.
when I was reading all of this. I'm like, how, it's like you would think like, how the hell is a book on like the historical Jesus going to come into the Anti-Net? But I think it's a brief. I don't go on too long of a tangent, but
Yeah.
it was really
It's an
fascinating
insight.
because I've seen now I've kind of like seen the same exact thing happen. And it's interesting to see that now everyone is following Pauline Christianity, just like everyone is following the Arenzian, I call it the Arenzian, Zettelkasten, Arenzian gospel of notes, and they're not following the true essence of what actually happened, up until I've unearthed it, right? So those types of ideas, even though you've read Maps of Meaning and all these other random branches, they're going to shape and become a core stamp, a core component of this book and this ideas that you're creating.
I mean, Peterson's book brought about gave its own framework for my framework, so it was invaluable. I mean, there's no doubt, and I've gotten what I've gotten out of it, because now he's going in another, it's further along the book, and he's getting to his thesis, which has nothing to do with what I'm doing, nor do I want to give my time to it now that I know what I'm trying to focus on. Because I do need to get to primary text pretty quickly, but I have to get through some of this stuff to see what primaries I do want to look into. So
I think so. The first book that you talked about is a lot of the theory stuff, which is really interesting, right? The second part, the framework stuff, is more practical and applied, and
I don't know how applied it is. That's going to be my problem, is how am I going to get people to see the application?
How are you going to teach people it or something? Or
I don't think it's going to be something. I think it's more kind of like a philosophical theory of how creativity could be. I don't, what I'm saying? It is a theoretical. I don't know how practical I'll be able to bring that in. It is literally a framework, a theory of how to, kind of like the creative problem solving methodology. It's a CPS knowledge, work through brainstorming, blah, 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 blah. That's practical. But I don't know. I think this is just to say, hey, can you see why it's important to have all these type of people, and not everyone has to be creative? There are people that are gifted at invention, they're gifted at science's discovery. Scientists, as far as I know, don't create new materials, they discover new materials, right? And so to give them the same creativity, I sound like an elitist saying this, but to give them the same laurels of creativity that you would to a Picasso is insane to me, and I feel like that's what's happened in modern creativity, is that like, oh, everybody's creative. Science is creativity, technology is creativity. No, it's not. It's invention. It's reinvention. It's taking parts and making it more advanced for humanistic needs and stuff. And so it's an aesthetic / commodity question for me, I guess, is what it is. And I'm hoping the framework will show that. It could be something that's taught one day. I don't see it yet, which is why I invited my 15 subscribers to say, hey, I'm more than willing to share this and hear your ideas. If you're interested in this stuff, I'm more interested to hear it. And also, I'm not just a taker. I'll, what are you working on? I'll help. I'm good at helping people see the through line of what they're trying to do too, when it comes to creativity, especially, but anything. I've got life experience. So that's, maybe that'll come about. One person took me up on that, which is cool. And he is a business consultant. And so I am interested why he's interested and what he sees in it, obviously. So, but I don't know the framework I'm working on, but it's not the forefront. It's it's more this stuff. And I found it interesting that you're like, talk about, how you came to this area, because that one post is me being me, and the other post are me being intellectual lane, right? And I don't really like to be intellectual lane. I like to be down to earth and explain complex things in very simple terms lane, And so that's the reason I'm glad you shared that way, because I was like, I enjoyed writing it. I just felt like no one really cared or whatever.
No, I would say continue doing like once a week. And it's interesting is those posts are a lot easier than trying to craft the other ones, right? Just like literally sit down and just start writing, bust it out like right as if you're writing, to just one person, and just infotainment, that's going to give you the audience. I think your ultimate goal, because obviously it sounds like your vision is not necessarily to create a whole creativity framework and sell organizations on how to in-source creativity to their teams necessarily, right? Because you've seen that, been there, done that.
Yeah.
So
if they use my framework, because it'd be fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, mine is a community of what you call neo intellectuals. I like that. And that community, and write books, and I, I'm happy if I'm spending time with people that are working on serious, cool things in their lives too. That makes me happy to be around those people.
Yeah, then I think the your objective is your objective is not monetization to sell to enterprises. Your objective is to build an audience of people, of neo intellectuals. And so you want to write the infotainment type of posts, which the anti-net is beautiful for that, because what it does, it's a thinking machine, so it develops your thought, right? But you write it not looking at any of your main cards or anything. You just write one post a week on your blog, right? And then the rest of the time is you continue developing the thought that is going to be mind food for the intellectuals on creativity. And potentially they probably maybe work at a company or work at something where you've kind of installed some deep-seated realizations about how creativity should work, that your ideas can maybe take shape and spread within companies without you actually having to be hired as a consultant and do all of that. And and so, and then
be a thought leader,
and you're selling the book. Essentially is it. So that is the that's a higher level,
and the $10,000 weekend workshops.
Exactly.
There's got to be a monetization at the end of it, but I don't really care about that anytime soon. But I mean, I appreciate our conversation, because I'm not off track as bad as I thought it was. And you're the idea on that. See, also, I don't know why I didn't think of that. That's really smart. I did watch a video the other night because I was like, what is this? And something with index, and that's when I did do the front of the section, and that gave me better, like, oh, okay, I can see everything interlinked to individual cards. And then giving me feedback on the post, because I don't want to abandon it, but I was like, I don't want to sit here, I don't want to write about what I'm researching fully, because it's not ready for that, and I don't want to develop it that way. But to sit there and just sit down and go, hey, this is what I'm working on this week, this is what I read, these are some interesting tidbits, like the chaos almost theory, which is just brilliant to me, that James Joyce came up with, and Umberto Eco wrote about it too. And I didn't know that, and I've read both those guys. And or maybe I lost it a long time ago because I read those in my 20s. But those discoveries I would like to share with people, like, this is a cool concept. And
absolutely.
So maybe I just thought people wouldn't care. I thought they'd want to just read like my ridiculous, overly intellectualized tree perception versus algorithmic thinking type stuff, which I enjoyed writing, but that's me being satirical. All those intellectual are satirical pieces of me jabbing back at intellectual, especially in the creativity realm. Well,
that could be it. That's more book material, but less blog material. But well, cool, man. Well, yes. So stay on it. I think maybe the learning and the realization is that you're going in the right direction. Stick now that you have like the creativity, the 2612, that needs to become the beast. That needs to become like half of the the box, and evolve
It is the
inwardly.
beast already compared to others. So
yeah, then you're well on your way. Then it's
that's what I was confused. Or should I develop one now that I'm focused? Just go with it.
Yeah, develop within that branch,
Okay.
2612 branch. And that's what it's going to turn into the book, and many books like my 4214, now just like now each section within that, like I've got like maybe 18 sections within my 4214, that's it. Like, and like the numeric alpha section is random. It's just like 4214/2A. And then I have like this freaking beast of a section called 4214/3EA, which is like my myths section, which kind of formed a huge basis of the thinking material, and just it'll grow. You got to trust the process, but I also think you should really think about the primary sources, the best sources, primary source, like what is like the number one book in creativity, or number one book that comes to mind or something. And or even what is the most what is the best book or set of research papers, or one research paper on how creativity actually works, and start from there. And because you don't need that many primary sources. I would say like my primary sources are really like the two most important ones for me. Is the Lumen article, and then the Johannes Schmidt. I also have a big one on like human memory. Like I read a textbook on human memory, which was the most painfully boring textbook in the world. It's like they basically complexified human memory, to using a bunch of Greek symbols and equations and all of that bull crap. But I've extracted the core lessons, So I don't know. Hopefully that helps, and I think hopefully it helps a lot of other people that are kind of. I think you're further along in the journey, so you're getting to that point where you've spent a lot of time developing the content. Now it's time to like hone down on the creativity, and you're making that phase transition, which is important.
I probably lost. I'd say probably at least 150, 200 cards to a water accident. So
really?
Yeah. So that sucked.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if you noticed that some of the bottom of the cards the ink is like, it drew up, but on those I couldn't do anything. It was like completely washed out practically.
Yeah.
I spilled a whole glass of water.
Oh fuck. Yeah, it's I guess that's the one con of the system, though. You still have it stamped, at least the most important lessons.
I remember if I wanted to write them back down, but a lot of them I was like the beginning, I didn't care. So it was fine.
Yeah, it also incentivizes you to get to manuscript faster if there's an existential risk to your knowledge, which is a benefit. True. Yeah,
that's true.
Cool. Well, all right, man. Well, thanks as always for hopping on. I'm gonna hit the end record button, and then